be screwed, feel my own adrenaline. Yeah, I do just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 6th part of Rias Issei, Rias meet Danny Phantom. Special note, this fanfic is written in a masterpiece of TheWhiteTitan on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. The next day, Rias slowly opened her eyes, feeling a pleasurable sore at her lower body. She felt so warm and peaceful that she didn't want to stand up. She looked at the source of her warmth and saw a sleeping Danny, his arms around her waist. She looked over the other side and saw Sona sleeping contently, snuggling on his chest. They were all naked, with only a blanket covering them. Rias smiled as she rested her head back on Danny's shoulder, feeling nostalgic. Flashback. The 3 friends were in Ria's room, which was dark with their only light the TV that was showing Ria's anime collection. The 3 kids were peacefully sleeping on the sofa, dozing off after watching 20 episodes at once. Danny was between the girls, sleeping peacefully. The girls were snuggling on his arms, resting their heads on his shoulders. A blanket was draped over them by Grafia, looking at the 3 sleeping children. Behind her was Circeches, his expression half cooing on how cute Rias was, and half jealous that she was snuggling another boy. Rias Tan is so cute, but she's sleeping next to a boy, he said in his half-faced state. Be quiet, Circech-sama, Grafia said, grabbing his ear. They're sleeping. Oh, Grafia Tan, Circech exclaimed, his half-face expression becoming a whole expression of face. That hurts. Once the door closed, Rias opened one eye before she smiled and snuggled closer to Danny. Flashback end. Some things just never change, she said as she sighed contently. Ara, you look so content, Rias-sama, a voice said. Surprised, Rias sat up and saw Akino, Shiren, Kuroka, Siesta and Tsubaki looking at the trio with blushes, lust, embarrassed or jealous looks. I'm so jealous. Me too, Naya, Kuroka said, looking like she wants to pounce on the sleeping Danny. Perverts, Shiren said with a jealous glare. What's that noise? Danny said as he sat up, looking at them with sleepy eyes. A few seconds passed before his eyes widened and he grabbed the blanket to cover himself, his face turning red. What are you guys doing here? He's back to normal, Rias thought, remembering how Danny was last night. Guess Sek really does change a person. Sona was awoken by the voices, causing her to look up, showing her hickey-covered chest. Her eyes widened when she saw the people in front of them, especially her queen. Realizing her state of dress, Sona squealed and grabbed her portion of the blanket, covering herself. I can't wait to tell the others about this, Naya, Kuroka said as she and Siesta glowed before disappearing. Wait, Danny exclaimed as the girls, minus Rias and Sona, disappeared. This is not good. What do you mean? Rias asked, looking at her lover. Wheel, Danny said, scratching the back of his neck. Now that I'm not a virgin anymore, nothing is gonna stop them from jumping on me. What? Why didn't you tell me? Rias exclaimed. I didn't know I wouldn't be a virgin anymore last night, Danny exclaimed. Sona watched as her 2 friends bickered before grabbing the blanket to cover herself and walked towards the bathroom to clean herself up. As she let the warm water soothe her aching body, she couldn't help but smirk at what happened last night. She was glad her plan worked. She knew that there was a chance Rias followed them on their date, and that increased the chance of having more fun with Danny. Checkmate, she said as she looked at her hickey-covered chest with a blush, remembering last night. Greetings, Mary-Jane said with a smile as she appeared in front of her home. I'm Mary-Jane Strauss. Welcome to the familiar forest. As you know, my little brother, Elfman, is in charge of helping young devils find their familiars. My job is to take care of them. She walked through her home, which looked bigger than the shack outside. It was like a stable caretaking room, with stairs connecting to their living quarters. Familiars of all kinds were happily minding their own business, either eating, sleeping, or playing with each other. Since Danny-san and his peerage are the ones with the more unique familiars, I will be introducing them to you, Murajane said cheerfully. First, let's start with Kujo the dog. Rushing towards her was a small, green St. Bernard's with red eyes and a spiked collar. Kujo here is Kuroka Taoju's familiar, a peculiar demon dog she found in America, Murajane said as Kujo chewed on his butt. This little fella looks cute, but if you provoke it, it'll turn into a 6-foot, 100 PND killing dog. Kujo then rolled on the ground, rolling away from Murajane. Hopping next was an orange toad with black markings and a small Yakuza vest. And next is Naruto-san's ninja toad, Gamakichi. Yo, the toad said, waving an arm before noticing a treat above him. Gamakichi-chan here assists Naruto-san in his ninja attacks, when needed. He also has a sweet tooth, Murajane said with a wink. Gamakichi, with candy in his mouth, hopped away. A giant, black bird with red feathers and a skull mask landed behind Murajane. And this is Tengu the Tengu bird, Randy-san's familiar. Tengu here is an ancient bird that is bonded to Randy-san's ninja suit, so whatever Randy-san feels, Tengu-chan feels. With a loud squawk, Tengu floated off the ground and 3 glittering fairies appeared over Murajane's shoulder, wearing green, red and blue dresses. These adorable creatures are fairies, belonging to Urza-san, Murajane said as the fairies started dancing around. They're mischievous little creatures that listens only to Urza. Despite their small size, they are very powerful in element magic. Urza met them during her 2-year training. She then shooed the fairies away and suddenly, a giant, purple crow floated next to her. This one is Embrace, an emperor crow, belonged to Raven-san, Murajane said as Embrace ruffled his feathers. This proud and noble fella is strong, intelligent and loyal, but very strong to have as a familiar. As Embrace flew away, a white, furry wolf, the size of a car, with gold, intelligent eyes and sharp teeth. This fuzzy fella is Terry, Jello-san's battle wolf. They are considered the king of all predators, being the fastest, strongest and smartest predators in the world. Terry got him as a pup when his mother was killed by fallen angels. Terry walked away and the ground started shaking. Behind her was a red T-Rex with yellow eyes and sharp teeth. This is Devil Dinosaur, a T-Rex, belongs to Gayu-san, she said as the dinosaur looked curiously at the readers, thinking whether to eat it or not. Gayu found him somewhere in Antarctica. The two fought to a standstill, and Gayu-san decided to keep him. He's adorable like a puppy, but if you anger him, he'll eat you. Red Devil then lumbered away as a flying blue cat with angel wings wearing breathe and a green sack around its neck floated next to Murajane. And this is Happy, the Exceed, belonging to Natsu-kun, Murajane said as Happy waved before pulling out a fish from his pack and started nibbling on it. He eats fish and likes to troll people, and he eats fish. Aye, Happy said before flying away, nibbling on the fish happily. A mutated silkworm suddenly fell and landed on Murajane's shoulder, drooling and cooing. This mysterious fella is Silky, a giant silkworm, belonging to Starfire-san, she said as she took the worm, petted its head, and putting it down. Elfman found it in the forest, and we didn't know what it was. It was so cute and defenseless that we couldn't just leave it alone. Silky crawled away, and a sprite dragon floated next to Murajane, cuddling next to her. This is Raiden, Asia-san's sprite dragon, Murajane said as Raiden kept cuddling. This fella doesn't like males, preferring to blast them, and like females better. She then shooed the small dragon away before 3 well-developed girls walked behind her. One was wearing a light blue dress with blonde hair and red eyes, a blonde girl with pointy ears and blue eyes dressed in a short dress, and a blue-haired, bubbly-looking girl with green eyes, dressed in a blue and white shirt and blue breathe. These are Dora-chan, Tifa-chan and Alakaku-chan, familiars of Danny-san, Murajane said as the girls waved at the readers. As some of you have guessed, the 2 dragons Danny-san have are Dora the Fire Dragon and Alakaku the Wind Dragon. As known, dragons are powerful creatures, proud and noble. Many devils tried to have one as a familiar, so it's quite a fuss that Danny-san has 2 dragons. And then we have Tefania the elf. Elves are a magical race, quite connected to nature. But because of the elf-orc war centuries ago, Tifa-chan may be the last of her kind. The 3 girls then waved goodbye before walking off screen. And that's all the time we have, Murrajane said with a friendly bow. Thank you for taking the time for meeting the familiar. I hope you have a good day. She and the familiars waved goodbye as the camera zoomed out from the familiar hut. The atmosphere was tense as the team of Rias, Aquino, Shiren, Siko, Elsa, and Eve faced off against the team of Siesta, Corey, Raven, Mizor, Mocha, and Asia in a game of volleyball. Due to using their devil magic, the normal students were only seeing a volleyball featuring cute and sexy girls, watching them jump around. But to those who belong to the supernatural world, they were watching an intense volleyball match, featuring magic and powers that could destroy the entire gym. And watching the match while tied up was the prize of the match, Danny Phantom. The poor boy sighed, remembering that it happened a few days ago, at the start of the sports festival week. A week ago. It's been a few days after Danny slept with Rias and Sona, and it has been a struggle to maintain his urges. Though because of Ignologia, the lust he felt is somewhat gone, but now that he tasted the pleasures of flesh, he had a strong time controlling himself. Especially with all the temptations. There was Siesta, who started wearing a skimpy maid's outfit, with a very, very short skirt that barely hid a black thong, a black BR, white apron, fishnet stockings, and her white headdress. Every time she would do her maidly duties, she would show off her tempting body, like flipping the back of her skirt when he was behind her. Then there was Kiroka, always dressed like those busty teachers in ikai-type mangas, with a shirt skirt, pantyhose, a small polo shirt with only one button with no BR, and a pair of glasses that completes the look. She would always disturb Danny, saying he needs to be punished for being a bad student, crossing her legs every now and again, showing she wasn't wearing any underwear. The only reason no one was bothered by it because only he was the only one who can see them like that. Thanks to Naruto, after bribing him with all the ramen he could eat, he created seals for the girls where it creates a genjutsu to hide their appearance, and only he can see it. Even the other girls were tempting him. Like Starfire barging in the bathroom when he was taking a shower, Mizor would wear a white, string bikini and would lick her lollipop in a SNSL way. Mocha would leave hickeys whenever she would ask to SCK his BLD. Aquino, with the use of magic, tricked him into eating her underwear. Rias would sneak into his bed at night in the NDE, removed all his clothes and slept with him while placing his hands on her privates and her hands on his privates. Even Shiren would rub her head on his chest while mewling sensually whenever she would sit on his lap. All of them were giving him a strong time concentrating and making his breathe uncomfortable. Luckily, he managed to take care of the second problem. He bought new devil underwear, which gives his privates dimensional space, giving his Urkton space to breathe. The only ones who weren't tempting him were Sona, who only asked for dates and a cuddle session now and then, Asia, who would innocently hold his hand and bump his shoulder, much to her embarrassment, Raven, who wanted to have him as company when she reads or meditate, and Tiffany, who was still staying close to Danny for protection. Today, all the council members, committee heads, and club presidents were in the council room, discussing about the upcoming sports week. He listened as Sona listed the schedule for the events. Since he was head of the DSPLN committee, he and his group were in charge of making sure no mischief will happen, especially from Issei's equally perverted friends, the former jock and the bald guy with glasses. Are there any more questions? Sona asked once she finished telling the sports and schedule. Yeah, Danny said, after looking at the schedule. Why isn't there an event for the last day? Well, most of the clubs are already busy, and some don't want to participate, Sona explained. Well, the DSPLN committee can spare some members, Danny said. And Rias Heim, your club doesn't seem busy that day, so maybe we can play together. I don't see why not, Rias said with a smile on her face. Very well then, Sona said as she wrote it down. I will let you decide on what sport to play. Now that is all for today. The students bid goodbye to Sona and walked out the door. Rias grabbed Danny's arm in a lovingly manner, causing him to blush a little. They could have just teleported to the inn, but Rias wanted to enjoy this small time together alone. So, what sport do you want to play? Danny asked as they walked home. I don't know, Rias said as she looked at her future husband. Let's talk about it with the rest, so we can decide. Sure, Danny said with a hum. The two, after shopping for dinner, made it home. After cleaning up, the residents were all seated in the dining room, eating. Once they were all full, they started discussing about the sports event. Gaiu wasn't interested in fighting a bunch of spermless weaklings, so he was out. Jella and Urza weren't much into sports. Naruto, Natsu, Randy and Jake were already participating in something else. Hinata and Lisanna volunteered to be nurses, leaving only Asia, Mocha, Mizore, Raven, Starfire and Siesta. And Train and Kyoko were still wandering around town, not wanting to go to school and prefer to work instead. In Ria's peerage, only Rias, Akino, Cheyenne, Elsa, Siko and Eve, since the others were already in a club, except Issei. Last year, all the girls took the sports festival as an excuse to pummel the perverted trio through sports, so he decided to just sit sports out and look at the billowing short skirts. "So, what should we do on the last day of the sports fest?" Danny asked them as they rested. "Basketball? I always wanted to try basketball." "We did that last year, it wasn't pleasant," Rias said, remembering the basketball incident. "No one wants to remember it." "What about soccer? We haven't played soccer in a long time," Danny suggested. "Ara, Akino said as she placed a hand on her cheek. "The soccer incident. Remember how those ambulance came? Such good memories." "Dodgeball? I'm very good at it," Danny suggested. "Banned from playing," Cheyenne said as she nibbled on some cookies. "Softball. Accidentally hurt the pitcher," Siko said as she calmly drank tea. She couldn't grip the bat properly, so it hit the pitcher in the groin. "Football?" Elsa looked away as her fellow servants and King looked at her, remembering how she froze the field to avoid getting dogpiled. "I'm scared to ask, but what about volleyball?" Danny suggested. "Oh, we haven't played volleyball yet," Rias said with a small smile before looking at her peerage. "What do you guys think?" Everyone around them agreed, seeing no other alternatives. "So, it's agreed," Danny said with a nod. "Hang on," Eve said. "Your team has one too many. We can't play with odd numbers." "Well, it'll be weird to be the only guy," Danny said, "so I guess I'm out." But why?" Rias said. She wanted to play with Danny, since it was one of her dreams to play a sport events with her husband-to-be. "Weren't you looking forward to this?" "It's all right," Danny said with a shrug. "There's still the school fest to look forward to." Rias pouted as she thought of a way to include Danny. Suddenly, an idea clicked in her head, causing her to smile widely. "How about this?" Rias said, getting their attention. "The winning team gets to do whatever they want with you, for one day." That certainly got their attention. "Hang on, why am I price?" Danny demanded. "Well, that's the only way you can be part of the game," Rias said in an innocent manner. "Not like that." Ara, Akino said with an innocent smile that scared Danny. "I think that's a wonderful idea." "Yeah," Cheyenne said with a nod. Even his peerage members seemed to like the idea. "Then it's decided," Rias said happily. "No, it's not." Flashback end. And that's how he was in this predicament. To the normal students, this was a show of very appealing girls happily playing volleyball while wearing shorts, but to the supernatural students, this was a small war to determine his fate for the next few days. And he was rooting for neither team, since some members in those teams, since some of them wanted to do things to him that would be very embarrassing. Though Ria's team has Elsa and Siko, girls he doesn't know, so they might not do weird things to him. But then again, Akino is with them. But the girls in his peerage might do something to him, since he read in some manga that servant girls secretly want to dominate their MSTR, but Asia, pure and innocent Asia, wouldn't do that. He didn't know which side to choose. Back to the game, the score was 22-23, with Danny's peerage on the lead. Rias wiped the sweat off her forehead as she looked at the scores. They needed to score 2 more times to win, and she wasn't going to let this opportunity slip. With that in mind, she threw the ball in the air and smacked it towards the opposite court, covering it with crimson energy. Corey quickly rushed towards the ball and sent it back with her glowing fist, sending it back to them. Cheyenne quickly rushed towards it and blocked it with her arms, sending it flying towards Siko, who spun in the air and used her forearm to smash the ball towards the opponent's side. Mocha slid towards it before sending it to Mizore, who encased it in ice before smashing it to them. Elsa slid towards it before bouncing it back towards an open space. Asia ran towards it, but she tripped, allowing Ria's group to score, making it 23-24 in Ria's favor. All the players were tense as Corey took the ball, ready to serve. From their determined expressions, this felt like a battle to decide the fate of everything dear to them. To the outsiders, they were watching happy girls bouncing around the volleyball, their chest bouncing every time they jump. Corey served the ball with a strong smash, her eyes glowing brightly. Surrounding it in green fire, the ball flew towards the opposite side with such force that the air whistled. Cheyenne quickly blocked it, the ground below her turning into a crater. Grunting, she forced the ball to the air, causing Aquino to jump and smash the ball with lightning. The ball flew towards Raven, who blocked it with her magic and sent it back towards them. Elsa quickly covered her arm in ice, shaping it into a racket, and smashing it back to the other side. Siesta ran towards the spot where the ball is, bounced it to the air with her magic, and allowed Mocha to smash it. Eve used her hair to turn into a giant fist, sending the ball back towards their opponents, but Corey flew towards it, returning it with a smash. Seiko slid towards the ball, falling to her knees, and smacked it to the air, just as Elsa jumped and bounced it to Aquino, covering it in ice. Aquino leaped to the air and smashed it, combing the ice with electricity. Raven and Corey quickly flew towards the ball, blasting it with black and green energy. The ball flew towards the edge of the opposite court, flying past Seiko, Elsa and Eve, who tried to block it. Before it hit the ground, Rias, Aquino and Cheyenne quickly blocked the ball together. The three grunted from the force from the ball, but together they managed to bounce the ball into the air, and Rias quickly jumped to the air, covering her hand with as much magic as she could muster. "Destruction!" she exclaimed as she smashed the ball. The ball flew so fast that the other team didn't react as it hit the floor, spreading a shockwave of destruction. Danny, out of instinct, irked a shield around him and the audience, protecting them from the shockwave. The players, however, were not spared. "Kaya!" they all exclaimed as their clothes, and the court, was destroyed, leaving them naked. They covered their privates while glaring at Reyes, who had a sheepish expression on her face. Lucky for them, they were protected by the illusion, otherwise the other students would have seen them naked, and Reyes would get an earful from Sona. Not to mention the destroyed court. She is definitely getting a lecture. "At least we won," she said, rubbing the back of her head. Meanwhile, the normal people watched as Ria's team cheered at their victory, not seeing their embarrassing predicament. Later. The sports festival was finally over, but with how it went, Danny felt like he didn't do all the cool things normal students do. Instead, he gets turned into a prize, and some jealous jerks pantsed him in front of a large crowd of girls, who started chasing him because of their uncontrolled lust. At least his friends enjoyed themselves. They deserve it for all the things they've done for him. And now, he was walking to a secluded area, since Rias wanted to see him alone. He was somewhat scared at what she would make him do. He hoped it won't be something perverted. "Danny-kun," a voice called from the corner. "Are you here yet? Hurry up." Danny took a deep breath and walked to the corner. He saw Rias, dressed in shorts and a white, sleeveless shirt, and behind her was a net. "What is this?" Danny asked. Rias just smiled as she held out 2 rackets and a shuttlecock. "Well, since you couldn't participate in any sports, I thought maybe you want to play with me," Rias said in a shy tone, making her look cute. "And the day isn't over yet, so the festival is still going." Danny looked at her, feeling a little guilty that he would think she would do something perverted. With a small smile, he took the other racket. Soon, the two started playing badminton, smiling and laughing, enjoying themselves. Unknown to them, Kuroko was nearby, smiling at the scene. She took a picture of it with a camera, so the two can remember this moment for a long time. Underworld. Ravel Phantom hummed happily as she finished packing all the necessary things she needs. She looked forward to this for a long time. "Are you ready, Ravel-sama?" Yelabuna asked, walking in the room. "Yeah," Ravel said with a small, excited smile. "I can't wait to go to see Oni-chan." It was the 3rd day in the sports fest, and 2 troublesome perverts were planning their revenge. It was Issei's friends, Baldy and former jock. The 2 were angry at the new pretty boy, dannyphantom, for taking the attention of all the girls in school, including Sona, Rias, Aquino, Cheyenne, and the new girls in school. It pissed them off. In fact, them and some of the jealous boys wanted to embarrass him, and they finally found a way. One of the jealous boys was a 3rd year, and he noticed how flat Danny's underwear is when he was wearing it, so they concluded that he had a small pee-pee. So, all of them planned to humiliate Fenton by pantsing him in front of the school, to shame him so much that he'll never show his pretty boy face again, and the girls will finally love them, but only in their poor delusions. So, it was during the dodgeball event that they took their plan into action. The players would cause a disturbance by fighting, making Danny to intervene since he was in charge of making sure no trouble was caused, and then Baldy and X-Jock would sneak behind him and pull down his breathe and underwear as the teams pull apart to show everyone his shame. "Look, everyone see how small his PP is," they all shouted with wicked gleams in their eyes as the audience stared at Danny. Their silence was deafening, causing them to smirk, thinking their plan worked. What they didn't expect was for half of the female population to faint from bleeding through their noses or the predatory look they had on their faces. Confused, the jealous boys looked at Danny and instantly regretted it. Because in front of them, making them green with envy, was an elephant. Danny quickly pulled up his breathe and run, but not before using a strange, red eye to glare at the jealous boys that was, unknown to them, was memorizing their faces, so he can extract their punishment. The next day, Danny didn't go to school, waiting for the female populace to calm down from their predatory phase. As for the jealous boys, they were tied up in the trees by hoses in a way that made it look like they were peeing their breathe. Everyone ignored them as they cried to be free, or at least to turn off the water. Danny's eyebrows were twitching as seating next to him were Elsa and Seiko, who were hugging his arms, snuggling into him and pressed their chest at his arms. They were in the orc room, and staring at the trio was an annoyed Rias, red aura slowly flowing out of her body. In his defense, he was just being himself when he hung out with them. He didn't expect them to fall for him. Their peerages were looking at the scene, some bemused, some amused, and one in jealousy. It was a week after the sports festival, and Danny went out with all 5 girls in from the winning team. With Rias, he played badminton with her, then table tennis, tennis and basketball before they took a bath together and just slept together, cuddling. Though that cuddling turned to embrace, which led to a passionate make-out session, which led to having sex. When it was Shiren's turn, all she asked was to be hand-fed homemade biscuits as she sat on his lap, while being petted. Aside from her getting a little handsy, it wasn't so bad. For Aquino, he doesn't want to think about it. Then it was Elsa's turn. It was awkward, since the two didn't know each other. So, they just hang out. They walked around town for a bit, before Elsa saw a singing contest happening, causing her eyes to sparkle a little. Sadly, when she tried to join, she said that it was couples only. Seeing her sad, Danny decided to enter with her, much to her surprise. When they got on stage, they sang a song Eternal Snow, and the people were captivated by their singing. Elsa looked at him with wide eyes full of wonder as their voices melded together in harmony. They then won the competition. Elsa ended their date with a peck on the cheek, surprising Danny as she giggled before walking back to her room, a skip in her step. With Seiko, it started as a simple walk around the town, maybe grab a bite to eat and call it a day. But then, they were ambushed by some rogue exorcists that were in hiding after the failed plans of Rainier and her flock. Normally, Seiko would not have any problems dealing with these kinds of enemies, but it seems they were prepared, as the area they were ambushed on was surrounded by holy magic, almost immobilizing her. Luckily, Danny was almost immune to holy magic, so he was able to beat the rogue exorcists, burning them until nothing was left, not even ashes. Seiko watched as he decimated the rogue exorcists and priests, ignoring their plead for mercy and forgiveness. His expression and power aroused her, making her remember his fight with Rias Phantom. After that, she gave him a French embrace, shocking him. After she was done, she licked her lips and walked to her room, rocking her hips as she walked. And that's how Danny found himself in the situation he was currently in, sandwiched between the two beauties. "Diamenet, senpai," Issei exclaimed in tears, kneeling on the ground in depression. "Stop stealing all the girls, leave some for me." "That's never gonna happen," Gray commented, causing a rain cloud to appear on Issei's head. "Issei-san has a point," Aquino said, giggling in a menacing way. "At this rate, the entire school might fall to your perverted charms." "I'm not perverted," Danny exclaimed, his face red. "Not convincing," Shiren said, eyeing the 2 girls hanging on his arms in slight jealousy. "Besides, after what you did to me on," Aquino, her face turning pink, "I still hurt, you perv." Some of the people in the clubroom turned red at what she said as she kept blushing and reminiscing about her date with Danny. Besides, if it's anyone's fault, it's Rias-san, Siko said, looking at the irate Rias. If you didn't make Danny come here as the reward for that volleyball match, we wouldn't have fallen for his charms. She's right, Elsa agreed with a smirk. You reap what you sow, Rias-san. A vain mark appeared on Ria's head as she looked at her two servants flirted with her husband-to-be. She should have seen this coming. From everything she learned from Graphia, female devils were attracted to strong males, so she should have kept a closer eye on Danny. Now here he was, having a big HRM, with half of it filled with some of her servants. Rias Heim, don't look at me like that, Danny pleaded as Rias gave him a cold look. Ara, Akino laughed before turning to her king. By the way, didn't Sona-sama said about a new devil student showing today? A new student? Danny asked, surprise. Who? Is it Sai? No, someone else, someone you know very well, Danny-sama, Akino said with a teasing smirk. Someone I know? Danny said, confused. Surzech-sama. No, Rias exclaimed, a mixture of embarrassment and horror. There's no way I'll let him enter this school, you hear me? No way. Okay, Danny said, raising his hands defensively as some of her peerage members looked at her in surprise, never seeing her freak out like this. Milikas? You're bad at guessing, Rias said. Yeah, just like you're bad at chess, Danny shot back, causing her to pout. But seriously, who's the new student? It's me, a voice said as a phantom portal appeared beside them. Danny became even more surprised when a small, blonde figure shot out from it and tackled Danny with a hug. Oni-chan, hello. Ravel-chan, Danny asked in surprise as his little sister looked up at him and smiled as she let go. He then saw that she was wearing a QO uniform. You're the new student? Yes, Ravel said as she showed off her uniform. Starting tomorrow, I'm going to be a new student. Why didn't you tell me? I would have prepared some treats for you, Danny said, patting her little sister on the head. I wanted it to be a surprise, Ravel said with a smile. Another person walked out of the portal. It was Yelabuna, Danny's second queen, carrying Ravel's luggage. Greetings, she said with a bow before smiling at them. Yelabuna-san, Danny greeted with a grin that made her blush bashfully. Are the others here, too? Yes, they are in your home, Danny-sama, Yelabuna replied. Okay, Danny said as he let Ravel go. I'm sorry for not being much of a king for your peerage, Yelabuna-san. No, it's fine, Yelabuna said with a small smile. It is very rare for a king to have two peerages. We're just glad we don't have to attend to Riser's needs. That's good, Danny said with a smile before looking at Ravel. So, why are you here, Ravel-chan? School's already closed for today. I wanted a tour from you, Oni-chan, she replied with a smile. We didn't spend some time, so I wanted to catch up. All right, he said with a smile. Do you want to start now? Yes, Ravel said as she pulled her brother out the door. Come on. Hold your horses, Danny said with a laugh as he followed his sister. I'll show you around. Just slow down. He then turned to his peerage. You guys can go home if you want to. I'll see you later. He waved at them goodbye before following his sister. They smiled as they watched the two siblings bonded. With nothing else to do, the group decided to walk home, guiding Yelabuna to their home. Meanwhile, Danny was showing a happy Ravel around the almost empty school. He first brought her to her classroom, where she would be classmates with Shiren and Sting, with Kuroka as her homeroom teacher. She sat at her desk and looked around the classroom in awe. Next, he brought her to the science lab, showing her the equipment, animals, chemicals, and other things, causing her eyes to glow with wonder. After that, he brought her to the DSPLN committee's room, where he and his peerage do their job or hang out when there's nothing to do. She asked if she could spend time with him in the room, and he agreed. He then showed her the school council's room, where they saw Sona and some of her servants working. Sona, who knew Ravel was coming to the school, merely greeted them with a smile. By the way, Sona-chan, Danny said before continuing the door. Is the paperwork done? Yes, Sona said, adjusting her glasses. She can go to school tomorrow. Danny nodded at her with a smile before continuing the tour. After that, he took her to the gym, which Ravel recognized, due to the rating game between Rias and Riser. Danny picked out a stray basketball and dribbled it for a little before shooting it, the ball going through the hoop, causing Ravel to cheer. They then walked out the gym and towards a half-finished building. Danny explained to her that he asked Sona to make a cafe for he and his peerage to work in to gain some money. She seemed pretty excited and asked if she could help, which he agreed. The two then spent the rest of the tour just walking around the schoolyard, talking and hanging out, enjoying each other's company. Danny spotted a vending machine, where he got 2 grape jelly juices for him and her. Ravel, who never heard of jelly juice, reluctantly tried the drink and liked it. Once it was time for the school to close, Danny led Ravel down the path where the Kurohu no Su was located. Ravel was smiling from ear to ear, having enjoyed her time with her big brother. "I can't wait to go to school tomorrow," Ravel said with a smile as they walked through the darkening streets. "Thanks for showing me around, Onia-chan." "No problem," Danny said with a smile. "I enjoyed spending time with you. We need to hang out more often. We haven't had time to catch up." "We should," Ravel said with a nod. "You still didn't tell me about your trip. I really want to hear where you've been." "It's a long story," Danny said as he patted her head. "I'll tell you at dinner." Once they got there, he opened the door and heard some shouts and laughter. Blinking, he and Ravel walked towards the living room, where he saw his 2 peerage and Ria's peerage happily conversing each other. Naruto and Hinata were talking to Ino, Nell and Let. Natsu and Lizana were chatting with Flare, Jello, Urza, Starfire and Raven were talking to Carmeline, Mira and Cirrus about their swords and magic. Shiren, Train and Seiya were talking to Nai, Lai and Miliana. Gayu was sitting next to Desiree, Zulan and Spectra, who seemed to like him, and Yolabuna was talking to Kuroka, Reyes and Aquino. "My, aren't you guys getting along nicely?" Danny said with a smile, getting their attention. "Danny-sama," his new peerage exclaimed, all standing up and greeting him excitedly, except for Yolabuna, who simply smiled. "Please treat us well." "Oh, treat me well, too," Danny said with a nervous smile. "How was your orientation, Ravel-sama?" Yolabuna asked, walking towards them. "I had fun," Ravel said with a big smile. "I can't wait to go to school tomorrow." Excuse me," a voice called. They turned and saw Tefania nervously looking at them, wearing an apron over her dress. "But dinner is ready." Siesta and Tefania, since they had a lot of new occupants, made a feast. The dining room was full of delicious-smelling food, and they all ate happily. Ravel sat next to Danny as she listened to his story about his long trip around the world. She and her fellow peerage members listened in awe and fascination. Once they were full, they took their baths. The girls seemed to enjoy their baths, especially Riser's former peerage. Whenever they took a bath with Riser, it was more about getting dirty than cleaning themselves. Here, they could relax and enjoy the bath, actually getting clean. Once they were done, they retired for the night, leaving the cleaning to the 3 fallen angels. Thanks to their recent additions, almost all the rooms were occupied. Danny, wearing his nightshirt, getting ready for bed. Just as he was about to jump on his soft bed, there was a knock on the door. He mentally groaned, wanting to sleep on his bed alone for once. Every night, a lot of the girls would come for the night and sleep with him, wanting to sleep because of his comforting warmth. He loved them all, but he would enjoy some elbow room on his own bed. He walked towards the door, expecting to see Rias, Siesta, Kuroka, Aquino, etc., but was surprised to see who it was. "Yolabuna-san," he said as the purple-haired woman stood in front of him, wearing a robe. "I hope I'm not disturbing you, Danny-sama," Yolabuna said with a bow. "May I please come in?" "Yeah, sure," Danny said, moving so she can come in. He then closed the door and sat on his bed as Yolabuna stood in front of him. "So, how's your first day here? I hope you and the others had fun." "We did, thank you," she said with a smile as she remembered the happy faces of her fellow peerage, who aren't afraid for once from their cruel and perverted ex-king. "So, did you need something?" Danny asked as he looked at Yolabuna. The woman grew nervous as she looked down on the ground, fiddling with the straps of her robes. I wanted to ask you something," she mumbled, avoiding eye contact. "Oh, what is it?" Danny asked, tilting his head. What do you think of me?" she asked suddenly. Danny was surprised by the question, but he answered her honestly. Well, you're a good and strong queen, despite having a dichi of a king, he said. You're smart, kind, and appealing, in an exotic way. Do you find me attractive? She asked in a hesitant tone, her face red from his praise. Danny was blushing, avoiding eye contact. Personally? Yeah, why, you're pretty attractive. Even when I look like this, she said as she suddenly removed the robe. Eyes widening, Danny was about to look away before he paused and looked at Yelabuna's body. Her flawless skin was tainted by ugly, black tattoos. Her nubs, belly button, and pee-pee lips were pierced by ugly rings, and on her crotch was a red tattoo with the word razor below it. She also had scars and marks, like WHP and ropes were used on her. Yelabuna stood there, looking ashamed as Danny stared at her with shocked eyes. I'm so sorry, Yelabuna-san, Danny said, not knowing what else to say. No, it wasn't your fault, Yelabuna said, her body shaking in shame. I'm sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. She was crying as she ran to the door, mentally berating herself. Before she was near the door, Danny quickly grabbed her arm, stopping her. Yelabuna looked at him with teary eyes before he hugged her, comforting her. It's all right, he whispered, patting her back. I'll take care of you, don't worry. How? Yelabuna asked, wiping away the tears. Just trust me, Danny said with a small, gentle smile. Yelabuna nodded before Danny put his hands in front of her, taking a deep breath. His hands turned into black fire, slowly encircling her. Yelabuna watched the black flames in wonder, not feeling any pain. In fact, the black flames felt comforting and warm. Suddenly, she saw all her scars, markings, and tattoos disappearing, like the fire was burning them away. After a few minutes, the flames went back to Danny, leaving Yelabuna's skin as smooth and flawless, like they were never there. Only the piercings remained. Danny then took her hand and led her to his bed, gently lying her on the soft bed. Now relax, he whispered to her. Just leave it to me. With that said, Danny started removing the piercings by hand, causing Yelabuna to shiver from pleasure. She held a as Danny removed the piercings. Wherever he touched tickled her, especially her sensitive parts. Danny gulped as he reached the piercings on her pee-pee. He could feel the heat radiating from her, and the scent was almost making him crazy, but he controlled himself as he gently removed the piercings. His fingers touched her moist lips as she withheld her body shaking. Once the last ring was removed, Danny burned them to ashes, to remove any reminder of her humiliation from Riser. There, all gone, he stammered, trying to look at her face. It was a good thing about his new magical underwear, otherwise she would have seen the irkton he was having. Now you're back to being appealing. Suddenly, Yelabuna pulled him by the shoulders and embraced him passionately. Danny's eyes widened as he just let her embrace him. After a minute, she pushed him away, breathed heavily, her face blushing red. I'm sorry, Danny-sama, she said breathlessly as she caressed his face. But I can't keep it bottled up anymore. I love you for so long now. Yeah, I seem to have that effect on some people, Danny commented in a way that made Yelabuna chuckle. But why me? I mean, I wasn't special before. I was really weak. I didn't care about that, she said with a smile. You were the one who was kind to me. When I was about to kill myself, you were the one who showed me that there was hope. Because of you, I grew the strength to help my fellow servants. But I understand your hesitance. After all, I'm just used goods. No, you're not, Danny said, stopping her. Look at you, you're appealing. I'm just saying that you could do so much better than me. That's not true, Yelabuna said as she wrapped her arms around him. You are the only man I will give my heart to. Geez, you just can't control yourself, can you? A voice said, causing Danny to jump. He looked behind him and saw Rias, Akino, and Kiroka. Ara, right after conquering 2 girls, you're already planning on taking another one, Akino said with a blush. How'd you guys get in here? Danny exclaimed before Rias held out a key. I need to get new locks. Suddenly, Akino and Kiroka tackled him, pinning him by the arms. Hey, he exclaimed before the two pulled his nightshirt over his head. Using it, they restrained his arms while blinding him. This isn't funny. This isn't supposed to be funny, Rias said as she looked at Danny in amusement, using his nightshirt to trap his arms and head. This is punishment for going after other women. It's time we control those perverted longing of yours. Yellowbuna watched as the crimson-haired girl removed his underwear, ignoring his protests. Her eyes widened as his pee-pee stood up, throbbing. She could feel herself get excited, thinking that she was the reason why he was strong. Rias Issei, this isn't funny, Danny exclaimed as he tried to free himself, but they really tied the bottom of his nightshirt well. Let me go, now. You're not so threatening when you have an Erkton, Naya, Kuroka said in a teasing tone as she started tracing the head with her finger, causing him to yelp. My, such energy, Akino said as she suddenly grabbed the base and stroking him, making him as expected of a pervert. Stop, Danny cried as Akino increased the pace. Og, I'm Mrs. Serious, say up. Yellowbuna-san, Akino said, getting the woman's attention. Why don't you try it? As his queen, you must learn to pleasure him. No, don't listen to her, Yellowbuna-san, Danny exclaimed as he struggled. She's evil. She Og. Akino suddenly gripped his pee-pee tightly, silencing him. Yellowbuna looked at the pee-pee with hungry eyes before walking forward as the other girls started stripping as well. Akino moved, letting Yellowbuna take her place as she slowly took the pee-pee in her hands, marveling at the sight. It's bigger than Riser's, she said as she started stroking it gently, making Danny Yellowbuna started breathe as she increased her pace, causing Danny to buck his hips. Rias suddenly joined Yellowbuna by caressing Danny's ball, increasing the pleasure. Akino and Kuroka sat on Danny's sides, their hands traveling on his bare body. Rias suddenly gained an idea, and with a mischievous smirk, told Yellowbuna, who agreed. The then pressed their melons against his pee-pee and started a double melon job, surprising Danny. He groaned as he felt their soft, warm melons massaging his pee-pee, almost making him lose his control. You're so stubborn, Rias said as she felt Danny fighting. She wanted to see the wild, sex-craved Danny that took her virginity. With a smirk, she started lick the tip. The girls saw what she was doing and followed her lead, with Yellowbuna lick the tip with her and Akino and Kuroka lick his nubs. Danny loudly as he struggled to free himself, but they kept him place. After a few minutes of their ministrations, he could feel his limit. I'm coming, he exclaimed as he leaked spouting out of his pee-pee. Rias cheered while Yellowbuna watched with wide eyes as Danny erupted like a faucet. White SMN got on his upper torso, the bed and on Yellowbuna and Rias. It's so warm, Yellowbuna admitted as she scooped some with her finger and tasted it. And surprisingly delicious. Naya, my favorite treat, Kuroka as she and Akino licked some off his chest. Danny just lied there, his chest heaving up and down, sweat covering his body. Rias, thinking that he might suffocate, undid the knot and removed his nightshirt. The moment she did that, there was a large burst of fire and there were a lot of blurs. Once they got their bearings, the girls saw at least 7 Dannys, all having the same crazed look in their eyes. Oh no, Tilda, Rias said in a teasing tone, looking excited. Please, Danny-kun, calm down Tilda. The original Danny felt his eye twitch from Ria's tone. He gestured at the 2 clones, who grabbed her, causing her to squeal as they pulled her away before disappearing in a magic circle. The remaining fire clones did the same to Akino and Kuroka, who were both looking very eager to be taken away. Soon, it was him and Yellowbuna. He turned to her, making her shiver from the look in his eyes. She was so excited that she could barely breath. Danny-sama, she said in a hesitant tone. Suddenly, in a blur, she was pushed on the bed, Danny pinning her arms to the bed. Sorry, but I can't control myself, Danny said. Breathe heavily. No, please don't control it, Yellowbuna said, looking excited. Take me. Make me yours. Danny suddenly embraced her fiercely, quickly slipping his tongue to her mouth. They tongue wrestled, with Danny dominating her. After a while, they stopped, giving Yellowbuna a chance to breathe. She knew when she felt his lips on her neck, traveling on her chest, stomach and navel, until he reached her wet pee-pee. Payback, he said before he dove in. Yellowbuna screamed as she felt her new king embrace her lower lips. He dug his tongue deep in her tight pee-pee, causing her to spasm and shake. Ah Tilda, Danny-sama, she cried as she grabbed his hair to hold herself better. After what felt like a long time for her, she couldn't hold it anymore. I'm coming. She SQR all over his face as she screamed. Danny watched as Yellowbuna kept coming until she calmed down as he wiped his face. He looked at the breathe woman, who was trying to calm down. Danny moved towards her, spread her legs and lined his pee-pee with her pee-pee's entrance. She seemed to have noticed as she looked at him in an eager and pleading way. With a smirk, he pushed his pee-pee through and entered through one push. Yolabuna's eyes widened as she released a silent scream. She wasn't aversion or inexperience, being Riser's favorite. But she hadn't expected it to be so different with Danny. It was better than Riser. Danny stayed still as he enjoyed Yolabuna's surprisingly tight pee-pee. It wasn't as tight as Ria's or Sona's, but it still made him groan from pleasure. He started bucking his hips, reaching deeper. The two groaned and eminem as they shook the bed, sweat dripping from their bodies. Yolabuna sat up and wrapped her arms around Danny's neck as he held her by her butt cheeks, keeping her in place. "More!" Yolabuna exclaimed with drool dripping from her mouth, trying to match his movements. "Harder, faster." Danny merely complied as he kept moving. Through his haze, he saw which spot made her eminem louder, so he focused on them. She screamed louder as he kept bringing her into higher heights of pleasure. She suddenly cummed, causing her to let go and fall back on the bed, breathe heavily. She was in joy, never feeling like that with Riser. When she was with him, he merely pleased himself, not even bothering to pleasure his servants. But Danny made her feel special. She then felt her right leg raised up. She looked and saw Danny lifting her leg, lining his pee-pee to her pee-pee, still strong. "Sorry, Yolabuna-san," Danny said with a smirk, "but I still need you." "Yes," she said with a smirk. "Keep going, Danny-sama. Use me to satisfy your lust." Danny smiled and leaned towards her, giving her an embrace before he started plowing her again as he rested her leg on his shoulder. Yolabuna simply eminem as she gripped on his sheets, losing herself. The next day, Danny blinked as he looked at the people gathered for breakfast. He noted that Naruto, Natsu, Jello and Train looked exhausted and tired. Rias, Akino, Kuroka, Yolabuna, Hinata, Ino, Nell, Flare, Lisanna, Carmeline, Cirrus, Mira, Nai, Lai, Miliana, Seiya seemed to have some kind of afterglow. He understood why Rias, Akino, Kuroka and Yolabuna were glowing, but not the others. He also noted that Desiree, Spectra and Zulan were not present. Ravel was sitting next to him, wearing her new QO uniform, happily eating her breakfast in a ladylike fashion. He was glad the rooms were soundproof. He didn't want her to be sleep-deprived by hearing her big brother's nightly activities. "Danny-san," a voice said, causing him to turn and smile. Walking towards the table was Stefania, dressed in a QO uniform, her pointy ears hidden with illusion magic. "How do I look?" "You look cute," Danny said with a smile, causing the elf to blush before joining them on the table. "I'm sorry you have to go to school, but it's the only way to keep you close to me." "No, it's all right," Stefania said with a small smile. "I prefer it this way." "Okay," Danny said as they continued eating until they were done. "I'm gonna go ahead. I need to do some inspection before school starts." "But it's so early," Ravel commented. "It's my job as the DSPLN committee chairman," Danny said with a shrug as he patted her head before turning to some of the members who were awake. "You guys can stay here and rest. You look exhausted." The guys glared at him, but he didn't know why. He then walked to a teleportation circle, appearing behind the school gates, the sky turning orange, the air slightly chilly. "Oh, good morning, Sona-chan," Danny greeted as he saw the bespectacled girl already in front of the gate. "Good morning," she greeted with a small smile as they waited outside the gates for student inspection. "How is Ravel-san? Is she doing all right?" "She's doing all right," Danny said with a small smile. "It's been nice catching up to her. I missed a lot." "You did it to help Rias," Sona said as she noticed Danny's sad look. "And you did, so don't feel bad about it." "Thanks," Danny said as some students and teachers started appearing. "Well, time to do our job." Italy. Walking through an airport were three girls, an orange-haired girl with pigtails, a blue-haired girl with short hair, and a pale blonde girl with milky eyes, all dressed in a short, white gown with a cross on the center of their chest. "Are you guys ready?" the orange girl asked, looking at her two companions. "Yes," the blue-haired girl said as the blonde simply nodded. "Let us go to Japan and complete our mission." "Yes, in the name of God, we must retrieve the Excalibur pieces," the orange-haired girl exclaimed. Let's go. Zenobia, Shin. Don't run, Irina, Shin said as she and Zenobia followed the girl towards the plane the church owns to take them to Japan, in a location called Kyo, in Devil's Territory. The pros of a HRM. Well, the good thing of having a HRM is you don't have to be alone, Danny said with a small blush as Rias and Aquino hugged his arm while Kuroka and Siesta wrapped their arms around his neck. You don't have to worry about breaking another girl's heart, Jello said as Urza, Carlamine and Cirrus stood next to him. You can have a big family, Naruto said as Nao, and Ino glommed him as Hinata ran to help him up. You can have lots of fun, Natsu said with a fanged grin as Lisana and Flare walked towards him and grabbing his hand. Lots of free food, Train said as Seiya, Miliana, Eve, Nai and Lai walked towards him, carrying some bentos. Gayu just stood there as Desiree, Spectra and Zulan hang over him, giggling and stroking his body. So many oppies, Issei cried, kneeling on all fours as he punched the ground in jealousy, rain fall on his head. Diamen lucky senpais. Cons of a HRM. Not enough space, Danny said as he was crowded by Rias, Aquino, Kuroka, Shiren, Siesta, Defania, Mocha, Starfire, Raven, Elsa, Mizor, Siko, Asia and Sona before the group fell when Serafal tackled them to the ground. A lot of painful moments, Naruto said, his right hand heavily bandaged while the other hand was being squeezed painfully by Hinata, who was giving BRTH. Next to her was Ino, Nell and Ni, also PRGNNT and waiting for their turn to crush his hand. Not enough stamina, Jello said as he sat on the bed, shirtless. He groaned when 3 pair of hands pulled him back to bed, ignoring his protest. Too much food, a bloated Train said as more bentos appeared from Seiya, Nai, Lai, Milana and Eve. Scary girls, Natsu said in fear, unaware that Murajane was appearing behind him, a sweet smile on her face, radiating a terrifying aura. Annoying, Gayu said as he frowned in annoyance while the 3 girls were still stroking his body, giggling. There are no cons for a HRM, Issei exclaimed angrily. Blasphemy, sacrilege. Well, you wouldn't know, since you don't even have a girlfriend, Gray said, causing an arrow to pierce Issei's chest before he kneeled to the ground, a rain cloud appearing on top of his head. Shut up, he cried to Gray, who just shrugged and walked away. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for more crossovers and stories. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author TheWhiteTitan on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.